Should the Pelicans and the Hawks, two of the most puzzling teams in the league, swap one borderline star player who doesn't fit with the actual star player for the other team's borderline star player who doesn't fit with the actual star player? Welcome back to Trade Machine Dolly. The NBA offseason is officially here, which means draft, free agency, and of course, trades. I've got a lot of trade proposals coming up, so be sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss any future trades. For today, the goal is to find a home for Dejounte Murray. The Hawks have gotten pretty clear in their signaling that the Murray-Trae combo hasn't worked out. They're open for trades to break up the duo. I've got ideas for a Trae Young trade, of course, and if I were the Hawks, I'd personally explore those first and keep Murray if I had to pick one or the other. But I think they're going to be less suitors for Trae with less appealing offers for him than you will have for Murray. And with as much as Trae is meant to the organization and the fan base, I'm good with trying one more iteration around him, giving him one more shot at leading them back on a deep playoff run. So I'm good with the idea of moving Murray. So if Murray is the one to move, where could he go? There are only a few teams with point guard needs. Really, the Spurs, the Pelicans, the Magic, and the Lakers come to mind. I don't think the Spurs are buying back in on Murray. Plus, I already fake traded Darius Garland to them. The Lakers don't have a package that the Hawks would probably be interested in. And the Magic, while needing to be mentioned in every potential trade for a guard or a shooter, they just don't feel like they're actually ready to make the big move to me. They can instead kind of sign a couple vet free agents, a Klay Thompson type, run it back for one more year of growth for Paolo and co before deciding what or where that final piece will come from. So that leaves the Pelicans, who are kind of the rich man's Hawks of the West in a weird sort of way. There's tons of talent on paper, a polarizing star player in Zion, a roster that doesn't totally make sense as a cohesive group, but also sometimes it does make sense. And there's a second star there, Brandon Ingram, who's made an all-star team, but seems to fairly or not end up being one of the main scapegoats. They're the rich man's version of the Hawks because they have had more success the last two seasons, this most recent iteration of both teams in a harder conference nonetheless. But ultimately, they both are middling teams who've got a lot of promise if they can find fits in roles that maximize that talent on the roster instead of overlapping or dragging each other down like they've kind of been doing a little bit here and there the last season or two. So here's the trade to solve both teams' woes. The Pelicans received Dejounte Murray and Clint Capela. The Hawks received Brandon Ingram, Dyson Daniels, and Milwaukee's unprotected 27 first-round pick. For the Pelicans, you get the all-star caliber point guard in Dejounte Murray to pair with Zion, both with 4 years on their deals, giving you a nice runway with two complementary all-star caliber players next to each other to continue to build around and reinvent around for the next, multiple years here. You then add Capela on an expiring to, at minimum, give you Valanciunas replacement for the season. He's likely headed out in free agency. And maybe you resign Capela if you want to keep a traditional center next to Zion next offseason. Maybe you let him walk to free up cap space next offseason if Zion becomes the center that he sometimes looks like he maybe needs to be. You end up with a potential closing group of Murray, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Zion, and Capela. You have a bench of Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, Larry Nance. One of those could maybe switch in if you want to do the Zion at center thing and not have Capela in that closing group. There is a lot of flexibility of lineup type. And most of all, this group makes sense. There's clearly defined roles for everyone. Everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing out there. Giving up Daniels hurts for sure, but both because of his contract and the position the position he plays, point guard, he makes the most sense as the piece that has to join Ingram in this swap. And I know that first round pick from Milwaukee is juicy, which is why it's the only one required in this deal. Maybe the negotiations could lead to two lesser first round picks instead of the one big juicy one. You could work that out amongst each other. I think this trade puts New Orleans in a position to compete for a top 6 seed in the West next year if, as always, Zion can stay healthy, productive season. But if you get a healthy Zion, you get a near all-star level Murray, you get continued development from Hawkins, Herb, and Murphy, you could be looking at a really tough team to play if you're a contender in the Western Conference. On the Hawks side of things, with Murray and Capela out the door, you realize the goal of, one, breaking up Murray and Trae, and two, of giving Okongwu the opportunity to be the full-time center that Capela was kind of blocking him out of the last season or two. Is Brandon Ingram a little too ISO-heavy, ball-stopper-y to work next to Trae? Possibly. It's definitely a question to ask. And if this trade happens, that cohesion between those two, how can you maximize the scoring ability of Trae Young and Brandon Ingram at the same time? That will be Quinn Snyder's top priority. But to get an all-star caliber player and an elite scorer back in this deal keeps the chances of Atlanta being competitive right now very much alive. And if I'm the Hawks, I'll take the bet that Brandon Ingram, with a little chip on his shoulder after kind of bad Team USA experience and then getting traded, that's a nice little chip to have. I think he could be a really great player for the Hawks. If it doesn't work at all, well, he's an expiring contract and you enter next summer with a bunch of cap space and can either continue the hunt for Trae's co-star or finish the blow up and trade Trae. And if it does work out with Ingram, you've got the inside track to resign him and have your 2 stars to keep building around. Then there is the Dyson Daniels portion of this. Great young player at 21, extension eligible, so maybe you could secure him on a solid team-friendly long-term deal here. And at 6'8", he makes a lot of sense as a potential backcourt mate of the future with Trae to kind of make up a little for that size there. And for now, he can run second unit. He can be your 6th man. He can still get plenty of time to have the ball in his hands, develop his own lead creator game. And with Murray and Capela gone and Ingram and Daniels in, this roster has just become a collection of basically all 6'8" athletes to surround Trae Young with, most of whom can shoot. You got Trae, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Jalen Johnson, Brandon Ingram, Onyeka Okongwu as your possible closing group. Swap out Bogey for DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, Sadiq Bey, Kobe Buffkin, even if you truly want, only 6'8" guys on the court around Trae at any given time. I think this team makes more sense than last year's, can give you a mini reset to give Quinn Snyder and Trae Young and some of these young guys a fresh start, a kind of 1-year prove it sort of situation. And it either works and you've got the full outline of a growing contender, or it makes for a clean blow up next offseason. When Ingram walks, you could trade Trae and suddenly you've got a few young 6'8" dudes left, plus the entire cap space and some good draft assets to start over with. So what do you think? Is there a better landing spot for Murray than the Pelicans? Would the Trae Young, Brandon Ingram fit be better than Ingram's was with Zion or Trae's was with Murray? Sound off in the comments below. Let me know. And of course, happy trade season, everyone. Check back soon for my next masterpiece.